I'm Nicole Shearin here with Chris Trevino for Instant Analysis Round 2 together, but this time in the Coliseum after the spring game. 33,427 fans. That's the most fans in the Coliseum since the last spring game in the 1990s. So Chris, what did you have to notice from the atmosphere overall?
Yeah, it was a packed event, with those 33,000 fans. Like you said, a record-setting crowd for the spring game. Lincoln Riley was very happy with that turnout. He was excited for all the fans and sort of building that momentum, and he said he can't wait to see this place packed in the fall. So he's already looking ahead to, that first season opener and seeing, that number triple, hopefully, with 90,000 fans or 60,000 fans. He wants to pack this place out, and you could tell from the get-go it was going to be a jumping event. When I got here at like 9 o'clock, there was already a line to get in the parking lot. Fans didn't get until 10. They trickled in slowly, but after that it was a steady pace of them coming in, and there was a lot of energy, there was a lot of fan events, there was some field goal kicking challenges, there was giveaways, so they did a lot to get the fans going, and just from people I talked to, fans DMing me, they had a great time, and it was a great turnout for what they wanted to do, and I think they showcased a little bit of what should get fans excited for this team. So overall, Lincoln was happy with the turnout. I know the players were excited that they could play in front of a crowd like this. So overall, just a successful day in terms of the atmosphere.
100%. There was a surplus sale for USC Nike gear. I got 2 shirts for $25, Chris, dry fit.
I mean, that's a steal. That's a bargain at any price.
I know, exactly. But how do you feel that this energy, that the fans brought transferred onto the field? What did you see from the players today?
Yeah, I mean, the players were really juiced up. I was down there on the field. You were down there in the field early, and we saw them coming out. They all had their Beats headphones, courtesy of Caleb Williams, So they were locked in. They were excited. You could see it on their faces. A guy like Mason Murphy looked like he was coming in for a boxing match. He was so fired up. He was screaming and yelling. You could see guys pumping each other up. So there was a lot of excitement, and even Lincoln Riley said, you could feel the momentum. The players could feel that momentum going on with the program, and If you live in LA and you can't feel it, then you're not paying attention. Those were kind of his words. So you can definitely feel the energy shift towards this USC program, and this was a nice little springboard into the summer. Obviously, they're going to take some time off. They're going to come back and do some summer workouts, and then fall camp starts. That's when the things really get started. We saw a lot of good things on the field, some things to work on, but overall, it was a really good progress for them, and the fans backed them up with some support.
All right, Chris, so let's start off by touching on the quarterbacks. Sure. Caleb Williams, it was his big debut in the Coliseum today in front of fans. We've got some excited fans, that's for sure, seeing that. But what did you see from his performance today?
Obviously, the offense took this one 34-30, I believe. They spotted the defense 21 points off the jump. There was a little bit of a interesting scoring formula. The defense could get points by defensive touchdowns, fourth down stops, blocking field goals, missing if they forced a missed field goal, stuff like that. So they spotted them 21 points, and obviously they needed those 21 points because the offense, especially with Caleb Williams was in, it was moving well, especially with that run game. But the quarterbacks, Caleb, looked great. He looked sharp. He was 10 of 12, finished with 98 yards and 2 touchdown passes to Mario Williams, his boy, formerly at Oklahoma as well. We weren't worried about that connection. That was a connection we knew was going to be strong coming into the Coliseum and for this season, and it's a lot of reasons why, me and myself have pegged Mario to be sort of that number one receiver or the guy who's going to get a lot of those looks. Caleb just has a comfort level with him. He's building chemistry with everyone, but you just see that comfort level with Rio. That's what he calls him.
Rio, yes.
Yeah, nice little nickname there. But Miller Moss, he also looked really, really well. I'm blanking on his line right now. He had 15 of 20, and he finished with 169 yards and a 48-yard touchdown to Kyle Ford, one of the big plays on the day. But, he looked a little bit, I feel like he had to get a little bit more comfortable. It being out in the Coliseum, he's not, a stranger to the Coliseum like Caleb is. So it looked like he had to pick up a little bit because obviously Caleb has played in this offense before. As I said, we weren't worried about what he was going to look like. Miller Moss started a little bit slower than Caleb, but man, he turned it on late, and both of those guys showed their footwork. Obviously, Caleb is known for being a runner. He finished with 11 rushing yards, some nice scrambles out of the pocket. The defense were coming for him, but Moss also showed some sweet feet, moving around, making guys miss, getting out of the pocket. both of those guys look really comfortable back there, and it was a great showing for the quarterbacks and this offense, which finished with 3 touchdown passes, no turnovers, which is a nice thing. Kalen Bullock did have an interception and wiped off the board with a penalty. We'll talk about that later, but no turnovers for the guys. They held onto the ball, and the run game was really efficient, so it was a nice showing.
It was fun being in the end zone for that Miller Moss Kyle Ford touchdown. Kyle Ford was hype. I was like, all right, football's back. Let's go. It was awesome. But another room that really showed up today were the running backs.
Yeah.
So, Chris, what did you see from Travis Dye, Austin Jones? Just tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, obviously a really stacked running back room, as we know. A little bit thin, but they got some talent in there with Dye and Barlow and Austin Jones, but they ran really, really well. I mean, I don't think it shows up necessarily with the yards per carry. I believe Barlow led the pack with about 4.6 yards per carry. The rest of the guys were under 4, but that wasn't the case when you watched it on the field. They were running hard. They were like little bowling balls out there. They were just knocking over people. They ran hard. They ran tough. And those were kind of the characteristics we knew we were going to see from a guy like Austin Jones and a guy like Travis Dye and Barlow, who flashed that ability last season. So it was nice to see that translate out into this offense. We saw it out in the field. They caught some passes. They got involved in the pass game. So overall, we saw what we expected from these running backs. They ran hard. The run game was efficient, and they even scored a touchdown. Austin Jones had that 6-yard touchdown, and proved to be effective in the red zone. They ran it 3 straight times, and they scored a touchdown, which I know USC fans probably almost fell out of their chairs after what last season went through with not being able to run the ball, not being able to finish in the red zone. So overall, the offense felt like a complete 180 to what USC fans had seen last year to right now. Dynamic passing game, balance with the run game, and an efficient offense in the red zone. So all those things were hallelujah to USC fans. So I know they enjoyed watching that. And overall, the run game looks like it's primed for a big season.
The offense showed up today, but so did the defense, Chris. What do we have to say? Romello Height with the sacked Caleb Williams today. Nick Figueroa had a game.
Lightly, because it's just
lightly. It's just a little. It's like a little tap.
Yeah.
But sacked Caleb Williams today. Nick Figueroa had a big game. What did you notice from the defensive performance on the field?
Yeah, I think it kind of reflected what USC coaches and Lincoln Riley have been talking about. It's been a back and forth affair, and you never felt like the defense was getting overrun or overwhelmed by this offensive performance or this offensive plays out there. They would give us some plays, but they would also come back with some plays of their own. They would give up a big play, and then they come back with a tackle for a loss or a really strong tackle at the line of scrimmage. I think the big standout for a lot of people and for us when we were talking about is the tackling was so much cleaner than what we saw last season. And I know that was a big emphasis for them this camp. Also with the effort. I feel like when there was a ball handler or someone got the ball, hats were on them. Super quick. No one was walking to the ball. Everyone was running 11 hats down, getting to that ball carrier, trying to make a turnover or something happen. So you like the effort. Grinch has been preaching that all camp, and we saw that out in the field. But the tackling was just so clean. It's sort of the other side of the ball with, like we said, red zone was a big struggle for the offense. Tackling was a big struggle for this defense last season, and they brought it today. They showed out when it came to the tackling, and, they made some plays here and there. Like I said, Kalen Bullock did have a nice interception down here in the end zone, but that was wiped off for a penalty. Only 2 penalties on the day, both on the defensive side of the ball, so they did get dinged up there. But to have no penalties on the offensive side of the ball, that's a great showing. And the 2 penalties were a targeting call. I mean, targeting in a spring game is a weird sign or a weird thing to see. Latrell McCutcheon got called for that. He was actually ejected initially, but they were like, no, bring him back. This is a spring game.
They're like, this is just a spring game. Bring him back.
Yeah, ESPN was like, bring him back. So they got that targeting call, and then Kalen's interception was wiped on a defensive holding down the field in the secondary. So I had predicted a Kalen Bullock interception for this game, so I was a little bit bummed to see that happen. Just let him go a little bit earlier. But overall, I think the defense really showed out. They had a couple held them to a couple fourth down stops, or held them to fourth down, didn't let them get to pick up the third down. And they seemed to get stronger as the game went on, especially in that second half, that second quarter. Yeah. I know Caleb said that he wanted to do a better job in that second quarter. He felt like it fell off a little bit for him. He holds himself to a higher standard just because he does have experience in this offense, and that was something he talked about in spring that, I want to be able to move the ball efficiently. I want to be able to pick up those third downs. Didn't get it done a couple times. I know he was hard on himself a little bit on that, but great showing of the defense. They came out, they made strong tackles, they made some big plays. Julian Simon also got a sack, the young redshirt freshman linebacker. Solo Tuliapupu, who's made a lot of buzz this camp, moving to defensive line. He got a big tackle behind the line of scrimmage. And I know everyone was hyping him up. That was just a great sign. A guy who's gone through so much with the injuries, with the knee, with the feet injuries, the foot surgeries, and everyone in the stadium was rooting for Solo, and for him to make a play like that, was awesome. So just a lot of good things done out there in the defense. The secondary, I know we wanted to talk about it, but it was shaky at times. Those cornerbacks, they're down on depth. Mekhi Blackman, he did not play. He's expected to kind of be the guy in the secondary. Damani Jackson, Josh Jackson, those guys were out, so they were hit by a little bit of depth issues. But cornerbacks are something cornerback play is definitely something they're going to have to work on moving forward.
I definitely think Chris mentioned it earlier. Lincoln's expectations for this game were, let's limit those penalties and let's just go out and play hard. And I really think we saw both of those things today, if not more. But Chris, before the game got going, he was checking out the recruits out there. So Chris, what did you notice of the recruits who showed up today? Because there were a lot of them here. Yeah,
it was a packed house in terms of fans, 33,000, but a large portion of those were the recruits. USC has been on a recruiting. They've been so consistent and aggressive this spring camp, getting kids to come to practice every week, especially on Saturdays. And this Saturday was no different. There was a large selection of guys. The big one, obviously, being Deuce Robinson, the number one tight end in the 2023 class, a 5-star prospect. He was here in attendance, so they put on a nice offensive showing for him. Arizona State's Eric Gentry, the transfer who was recently entered the portal earlier this week. He was on campus, 6'6", a little light on the weight, but a dynamic pass rusher. They had a bunch of local guys too. Zachariah Branch, Zion Branch, the two Zion being the guy who's coming in this summer, and then Zachariah Branch, the 5-star wide receiver. They were on campus, obviously doing a little bit of recruiting. Roderick Robinson, the big San Diego 4-star running back, he was on campus. So a lot of big local guys came out. The Long Beach Poly crew came out. Dalen Austin, Dylan Williams, the new commit. So a lot of local kids came out. It was a great showing. They brought them. They had them sitting down here on the field. And then they brought them out in the field, and they got to interact with the team, interact with the coaches, and then they got to hang out a little bit. So it was a cool experience for them. They hadn't really done that before, at least in the games that I've covered with recruits are here. They usually shove them all off into the tunnel, but they brought them out in the field, let them get on the field and interact with players and coaches. So that was a nice little twist to the recruiting under Lincoln Riley.
No, I think USC Athletics in general has done a great job with this game, like you said, with the recruits. But after the game, people could get autographs from their favorite players. They just were really trying to incorporate the fans into the game day experience. But Chris, do you have any final thoughts about the spring game, closing out spring football? How do you feel?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to add, there was a lot of alumni in attendance. You saw Zach Banner, Drake London. He's a baby alumni, but he was here. Everyone wanted an autograph from Drake. Leonard Williams was here. Sua Cravens was on doing media calls. There was a lot. Matt Leinart was here. So there was a ton of alumni here, more that we haven't named. They were just floating around there. So lots of guys coming back home to the Coliseum. Lincoln Riley said that in his opening press conference here, that he wanted the alumni to be part of this program. They're so important to this, and he's lived up to that. He's bringing alumni in. They're giving out the decals, so that's nice to see. But just overall thoughts, I thought it was a really nice culmination for spring. I felt like USC sort of hit on everything they wanted to do. The offense looked like it's been solved really well. It looked like it was clicking plenty of times. The defense still has a little bit of work to do, as we mentioned. They still need a little bit of depth, especially on the defensive line. But even though I say that, the defensive line looked pretty good with their rotation. They just need some more bodies. And then obviously we mentioned the secondary. Cornerback specifically could use a little bit of work. Linebackers, I thought they played really well. Raylan Goforth, Shane Lee, they were standouts. Those are the two guys that have been making the most plays in camp, and I think that showcased out on the field. Still could use a little bit of depth at the linebacker position, but overall, I think it was a great showing. I think it was a good fan turnout. I think it did a lot to get fans excited for the fall, and Lincoln Riley and them, they're hoping that this place is packed for the season opener against Rice, and I think they held up their end. And they showcased, a different team, a different program. They showcased better tackling. They showcased red zone efficiency. They showcased big plays. They showcased an exciting offense and hard hitting and effort and intensity, things that were lacking last season. And I think all that showed in the Coliseum. And above all, it's about the culture that Lincoln Riley is building. We saw multiple players talk about it in the press conference, how the culture is so much different now. Andrew Voorhees said, that Lincoln Riley and these coaches aren't afraid to hurt your feelings. They aren't afraid to say something that hurt your feelings if it makes you better. So there's been a lot of that this spring. There's been a lot of that since Lincoln Riley came on, and I think you're seeing that product on the field. These guys are bonding together. I saw guys, like a guy like Tui Pelotu and Travis Dye, who are new teammates, dapping each other up in the press conference. It's just little things like that that you can see this team bonding and coming together.
Or Caleb coming in and patting all of his teammates on the back after the press conference. Like, you can just see it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's little things like that. Those little things showcase kind of what the culture is doing and sort of how they're moving forward as a team and a program. And I think we just saw, a bright future out on this Coliseum field. I don't want to get too, optimistic, but there was a lot of nice things, especially when the last game we covered was Cal, and there was a lot of bad things in a 4-8 2021 season. So this was a nice start to the Lincoln Riley era, but a lot of work to be done, and he'd be the first one to say that.
Like Chris said, I think this was a great way to close out spring football, and this Coliseum just got a little taste of what it's going to look like in the fall with the fan turnout. But that's going to do it for Instant Analysis after your last spring football game of 2022. But for Chris Trevino, I'm Nicole Shearin. Check out USCfootball.com for more.